I think there are two bits of that. I think religion, well, firstly, religion was doing pretty well before this crisis, so you could argue, maybe it's going to unseat it a bit. I suspect probably not. I think, I think actually, particularly perhaps in America, that element of suddenly kind of personal crisis, people losing their jobs, people being scared, that will, I think, probably drive people back to churches a bit. As I said, these things come in waves, and my suspicion is that one sort of big evangelical wave may just be cresting a bit. I don't know whether the economy in some ways will give it a little bit more legs. The other day I went to Saddleback Church, which is Rick Warren's one, and there was an event which they expected a sort of couple of hundred people to come to, instead of which a couple of thousand did. And I suspect there might be some element, we don't know, of depression economics at work there. People say that recessions are good for movie theatres and churches. That could yet be true. In terms of religion's role in causing the economic crash, I don't think even I can, even like all authors, I'm always desperate to tie things into my subject matter, but I can't quite do that. There is a big argument, which I think is very relevant to the modern sort of political situation, which goes something like this. When people look at forces like globalisation and economics, there has been a presumption, particularly amongst the business community, that the world of the past 100 years, world of the past 25 years, the basic push of globalisation, because it's got technology and it's got economic logic behind it, because it is, a billion people have been dragged out of poverty by this thing. This will continue, and yet, there are less rational things at work, and religion I think is one of those. That's where it fits in to me. It fits in the sense that people will not, in India at the moment, India's got an election coming up, they will vote on the economy, but they will also vote on issues about how exactly you treat Islam, how exactly you deal with that. There are a lot of irrational things at work within politics, and that's what makes it very difficult for people who are purely technocrats to solve. And I think particularly in the business community, there is this presumption that if you have economic logic and technology on your side, or appear to, that in the end everything's going to be okay. And yes, that's what my suspicion is. Yes, it will be okay. But that's my sort of 60% bet, so to speak. But I think there's a sort of 30% chance that actually something stupid, political, emotional, perhaps including something to do with religion, will intervene. There are strange forces out there at the moment, and if you want to particularly, and I'm not predicting this is the same, look back at a lot of the literature before the First World War. People then just assume that even if there was a war, which most people totally assume there wouldn't be, that it wouldn't really affect this fantastic period of prosperity they'd had before. And in fact, actually, they then tumbled through out of the war eventually into you had the 20s, but then you had the horrors of the Depression. There are irrational things there. Peter Drucker, the management thinker, had a very nice line once that, whenever economic logic has confronted, I think it's politics and nationalism, it hasn't always been the former that's won. And I think it's in those cracks where things appear. What happens if Iran and America at the moment, there is a logical sort of compromise to make if you're the mullahs in Iran. You gained a lot. Partly because of G.W. Bush, you have got a lot more power. What do you do with it? Do you cash in your chips? That would be the rational thing to do, but how rational are they?